Hey, how's it going, guys? This is episode 3 of FRASER Talks. Now, it's been a little while since I've done any of these, and typically what I've done in the past was put a prompt in the chat GPT to sort of as a guideline, as to where I should take this conversation with myself throughout the entirety of the episode. And this, I'm kind of going in blind. I don't have too many plans as to what I'm going to talk about. I'm more or less kind of using this as an outlet of a therapeutic outlet, so to speak. Today is not a good day. I woke up pretty, I don't want to say fed up, maybe overwhelmed. Very angry, which is kind of funny because I'm not a very angry person. I have a lot of anger, don't get me wrong, but I keep that under control. And usually how I do that is I do something creative, like work on music or whatever, right? Journaling, as I've said before. And today I really don't even feel like doing that. I just kind of, it's like, it's a bit much. And the way my mind works, which even I try to, I try my best to kind of give advice from my perspective of how I dealt with things, is even I can't live up to my own philosophy sometimes. I'm a human being, right? So the way my mind works, as soon as I start feeling this way, I instantly, it's not even, it's more of a subconscious thing. I immediately start remembering every single trauma, wrong thing that's ever happened to me in my life. It's a really pathetic victim mindset. And the hilarity of it all is, as soon as my mind starts doing that and starts going like, hey, remember this, when this shitty thing happened to you? Remember when all this stuff happened to you? The hilarious thing about all of that is during that, I'm realizing what's happening, yet I just entertain it anyways. Because it's kind of like God forbid, I sit there and think to myself like, but those things did happen. They did happen, and that was unfair. That was shitty. You know what I mean? So I think it's justified. I understand there are people going through a whole other ball game of hurt in the world. I understand that. So there's another part. I don't think that makes my problems any less important. I think that for everybody, just because there are horrible things going on in the world doesn't mean that your problems don't matter. But I just can't help feel that guilt, I've gone through different things that it's very unique to me, and I think that's kind of goes without saying. I think everybody's problems are unique to the individual, right? It's not going to be, it's very obvious it's this type of a problem. It's very complex than that, right? But yeah, so I just don't feel like talking to anybody, and I know how to deal with it. I'm a grown adult. I just have this anger today, and I just don't want to, it's best I just turn my phone on to do not disturb, because I will snap, and the worst thing you could do is make decisions and talk to people when you're in peak rage. I may seem calm, right? But it's pretty bad. I could distract myself with movies, I suppose. Music-wise, I have everything kind of down pat, so we'll see how it goes. Sorry, I'm just kind of adjusting how I'm sitting right now. I'm doing this very kind of, it's kind of ghetto, if you saw. the way I'm doing this. I'm literally in my pajamas, sitting on my couch, doom scrolling on my phone in complete silence in my living room because I need to train myself to just be, well, first of all, I should put down this phone. I need to train myself to be kind of okay and just sit with the feelings, like the worst thing, I'll try to make this as helpful as possible. I don't want to be like such a downer in one of these episodes, but I just thought it'd be helpful to kind of be real for once, right? The other ones I was being real, so to speak, but it was very structured with prompts, and not prompts, but guidelines of topics on what to talk about, But I think it's very important, and I think a lot of people have this problem, is they don't know how to sit down and be with themselves. You know what I mean? And not necessarily ruminate in your own what you perceive as flaws, but just kind of accept those flaws for being a part of, like, nobody's perfect, right? Like it's going to be, you can't be wow, I can't even think of a character in fiction that would be completely perfect in every way. Maybe Mary Poppins. Practically perfect in every way. But even she had her own issues, right? She was kind of that statement alone is kind of an egotistical, self-absorbed statement, right? She always had to kind of outdo somebody, or Bert or whatever. Bert was kind of the butt of the joke. I don't know why I'm talking about that, but maybe I could flip the things to music. So with music, things have been good. I'm just kind of continuing on with what I do, which is just work on music, work on ideas and beats and flipping samples and things like this, mixing things for people occasionally, some ghost production on the side. That's always fun. It's always fun to do somebody else's homework. But it pays, right? Because that's what it's about. It's about money, right? Man's gotta eat. I just recently played at Paradise, which is a local festival in my where I live, right? And it was good. I played the dome stage. The stage there just gets better and better every year, and more people every year too, which is crazy. The sound system is terrific. And yeah, I played my set in the dome, and I like the setup. And I more or less kind of just kept to my own. I don't really go to things like that with people. I don't really go there for the partying, right? I kind of go there for to learn. It's like a master class, right? I observe how the headliners work, and I just kind of see like what music they play. If it's their own music, I'll kind of like think about it like, whoa, like that sounds good in the sound system. How did they I'm just analyzing each and every track and how they make it. I'm not really interested in like making friends or anything. No insult to anybody. It's just kind of, I'm there for one thing. I'm just there for the music, literally, as cheesy as that sounds. So I pitched my tent. I camped out there. Of course, I had some drinks. You gotta have some drinks. You gotta let loose. So that's the first time I actually experienced that festival in its entirety. Because typically what I do is I just play the set, hang out for a bit, try to talk to as many people as I can, and then just go home. But this time around, I just kind of, I set up camp. I did go home momentarily throughout like the middle of the day, so I can go home and shower and stuff like that. Eat a proper meal. But it was nice. I recently did a back-to-back set with Dynamic on Insomniac Radio, which is on the analog channel, hosted by Goshfather. Shout out to Goshfather, shout out to Dynamic. And it was great. It's on this Disco Illuminati channel. You know, it's a pretty good group of guys. You know, if you know, you know. And yeah, that was a really cool opportunity. But other than that, I'm just like, I just keep on keeping on. You know, like there's not an entire. I have a plan. Don't get me wrong. I'm not naive. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not thinking, oh, I'm just gonna keep making music, and then one day I'm gonna be playing Tomorrowland. No, that's not how I think. Okay, I understand there's steps. You know, and like I've said before, everyone's journey is different, right? Like, I don't find it at all. I'm not very convinced that if I post a lot of mental popcorn that's going to really change things for me. Sure, I got to get it out there, right? But I'll figure my own way to get it out there. And what I'm doing is working well to me, right? In terms of content, weirdly enough, I think what I'm doing right now, recording this, I think this is the type of content I prefer to do. It's just talking. Okay, I'm kind of calming down a little bit. Yeah, there must be something in the air. I didn't have any caffeine today, and thank goodness I didn't, because I would be very, very anxious right now. I don't know what happened to me, but before I used to drink like an entire pot of coffee, like I'm talking 12 cups. No problem. Easy peasy. Nowadays, 1 cup of coffee, like a standard cup of coffee, it doesn't, like, it keeps me awake, sure, but the anxiety factor is just there, you know? Like, so yeah, sometimes you gotta watch yourself with that. You gotta kind of observe how things sometimes things don't really serve you anymore, you know? Things like stimulants like caffeine, nicotine, okay? Or your depressants like alcohol. Alcohol is a pretty bad one. But boy, during the moment, does it ever make you feel good. It's that sort of, it's faux happiness, you know? It's faux confidence. That's what it is. And I think that's what a lot of people get addicted to that. I think a lot of people get addicted to how it makes them, not how it makes them feel, but how it makes them feel they can act the way they want to act. You know, meaning like some people get very confident and they're very all over the place and things like that. And I guess they kind of like that factor that they can kind of be themselves. And the irony of it is they can be themselves if they're sober. Hell, I gotta tell myself that sometimes. I'm more of an introverted extrovert. I can be extroverted if I feel like it, you know? So if I know you guys really well, even if I don't know you, I can be extroverted. But just a lot of the time, it's exhausting. Take After Paradise, for example. I was completely worn out, and I didn't do a lot of talking, to be fair. I was probably sleeping all day for a good day or two. I just kind of ignored the world. I didn't want to talk to anybody. It was just kind of my social battery was drained, more or less. And that's nobody's fault. That's just the way I'm built, basically. People change. I used to be very outgoing when I was in high school. I used to be very outgoing. And I became more sheltered, isolated, and I don't necessarily think that's an unhealthy thing, because I actually thrive in solitude, you know, and I think that's important to kind of understand yourself that way. Not a lot of people have to understand it either. The weirdest thing this might get me a bit flustered here because this really legitimately bothers me. Another thing is that when you do things like that, the only people it bothers, it shouldn't, like, other people seem to be so affected by that. Oh, Dustin, you should come out. Come out where? Oh, we're going to the bar tonight, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I'm staying home. Oh, you always stay home. You should come out, man. It's like, it can't be good sitting at home. It's like, dude, I've never lived my entire life being affected by somebody else's way of living. So long as it's not destructive, if that makes sense. If I asked one of my buddies, like, if he wants to go to this event, which to be fair is kind of out of the way and kind of inconveniencing his daily routine, so to speak, and he said, no, I don't feel like it, I'd be like, fair enough, okay. You know, I suspect maybe that bothers people inside because this could be a form of this probably most definitely is assumption, but it's what I've observed is that maybe that bothers people because they can't seem to do that. Maybe I find a lot of people who are extremely extroverted and they go out to all these events and things like that is they're never by themselves. And why is that? Can they live with their own thoughts? You know? I find I have a lot of extroverted friends. They get depressed if they're alone too long. They need to be with people. You know, they need to outsource that happiness to others. And in a weird way, I kind of feel for them, you know, because that would suck. And this, I don't mean this nihilistically or pessimistically, but in the end, all you've got is yourself. You're the only person that has ever experienced the injustice that's ever happened to you, the good that has ever happened to you. You know, if you have dark thoughts about your life, you're the only person that witnesses that. Your own perspective, you cannot fully explain your own personal perspective of life to others. You know, a situation, a half comment somebody makes that kind of rubs you the wrong way, and you know it's wrong the way that person said that thing to you, but you try to explain it, it comes off as people will just throw things like, oh, you're just being insecure, or you think you do deeply into it. It's like, no, I don't think you think you do deeply into it. Whatever was said was definitely wrong, but what more can you do, right? Like, you try to explain that. It's like the sky's falling, right? The boy who cried wolf. Not really the boy who cried wolf, but the same tone, I suppose. Sorry, my voice gets weird when I speak too much because, like I said, I spend a lot of time in solitude, so I don't speak too much outwardly. I text a lot, but yeah, that's that. Video gaming. Let's go into the topic of video gaming. I only do that in the evenings, and to me, that's the social aspect. So I game with my friends, and I have a great time with that. I have a hard time relaxing though. So even while video gaming, I could be enjoying myself, but I can't shake that internal. What would be a right way of saying it? This internal pressure, this internal, like, I just can't help but thinking I should be spending my time doing something more productive, more creative. I should be doing music stuff. Honestly, that's what it comes down to. And that's the thing a lot of people don't really want to do in this life is I've sacrificed a majority and basically my entire 20s doing this. I know this is a new project, but I've been doing this since 2013. You know, like, of course I had a social life. I didn't take it as seriously when I was in high school. But in my 20s, you know, there's a Russian nesting doll. It's like a giant web of things, you know. Maybe you go to university for a business management degree, knowing full well you don't give a fucking shit about business management. But, you know, your rational side of the brain goes like, this might be helpful for the music side of things, which by the way it was. But it's like the feeling of your soul dying because you're not doing what you're meant to be doing. So I partied a lot. I'd go out to bars, you know? I'd try to numb this feeling of being lost with alcohol, basically. So, you know, you spend a couple years and you kind of like, oh, like, well, I don't really know what I'm doing. All I know is I'd be happy doing whatever so long as I have the time to do what I want to do in my free time. So I just did that. And I worked. I've done many things. I was a compaction tester for a geotech company. Okay, I was a ramp agent for an airline. I also fueled the plane and loaded it and checked people in, all that stuff. I worked for the government at a liquor store. I worked at a grocery store. I did landscaping. I was a student supervisor landscaping. I did all sorts of things. Heck, I even did RC drilling. It wasn't really for me. It was hard. I enjoyed the experience, but it wasn't for me. And shout out to all those guys, because those guys are crazy hard workers. I've never seen anything like it. So I've been around with the jobs, and eventually I just went to school for audio engineering. And I think I've said this before, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but that school was helpful because I realized I didn't want to be a studio lackey. I didn't want to be plugging in cables for some other artist to record their music. I'm not convinced you can gain your connections that way. You know? So I got my diploma. I'm still eligible. I could work for radio if I had the motivation or passion to do so. I could work for television if I wanted to, doing the audio. If I wanted to do live sound, I could. But I have no passion in any of that. You know, the one thing I did find interesting from the program was AVIS, audio for visual something. I forget the entire acronym. But basically what that is, you know, Foley effects. If you see somebody walking in snow, you know, that's some guy in a studio recording himself stepping on cornstarch to get that snow crunch, right? And it's a bunch of sounds layered in to kind of build a world, what you see on TV. That was actually kind of interesting. And funny enough, I kind of did that. I used to do that with the Starfighter project, which is my passion project because I like synthwave music. Excuse me, I'm grabbing a glass of water. So yeah, I used to do that without even knowing what that was. With the Starfighter project, so synthwave music is kind of loosely, well, not really loosely, it's kind of based on like old sci-fi or even 80s action movies music from that time. So it's very retro sounding, a lot of analog synths and things like this, right? 707 Lin kicks, right? Things like that. Very old school sounding. So what I do with the Starfighter, and this was back in 2015, 2014, maybe 2015, I would play a specific scene that I really enjoyed. This is when I was working with MIDI a lot. Nowadays I don't. I do work with MIDI sometimes if I want, but I work with samples because I like samples. I like sample-based house music. But going back to it, with the Starfighter, I would put on movie scenes I really enjoyed from 80s films. I would put it on mute and I would just watch it. And then I would take my favorite synthesizer and I would work on an ARP to kind of captivate as best I could the mood that I think fit that scene. Okay? So I would do that. And because it's electronic music, it's very loopable. So I would make maybe an 8-bar loop of an ARP. You know, maybe some patterns repeating for the first couple bars or the first bar or so. But some parts would change because I want some chord changes. And afterwards, I would just kind of... First, I would start with the root note of the chord. And I would build things that way. Till eventually I got my entire first EP finished on... That's the Starfighter project, which is called After Hours, signed to Future 80s Records, which, by the way, shout out to Future 80s Records, phenomenal label. The funny part about that EP getting signed is I didn't expect to make that project anything. I just wanted to put out 1 or 3 songs on SoundCloud for free. And so I contacted this graphic designer who did the graphics for Future 80s at that time. And so I contacted the graphic designer and I kind of explained what I wanted, you know, a car chase and things like this. And out of curiosity, they asked, well, can I listen to the EP? So I sent it to him. And apparently he forwarded that link to the label owner of Future 80s. And they wanted to sign it. So I thought that was really neat. So I signed it to them, and it did okay in the synthwave world, right? And I just kind of favored the Dustin Miles project because that was my main project. The Starfighter was something that I could just do that for free all my life. I don't care. I just love making synthwave. And eventually I put out a reimagining, a rework, if you will, of the Exorcist theme song. And that got picked up by Absolute Valentine. Is it Absolute Valentine? Is that the guy? I think that's another synthwave artist, actually. Yeah, Absolute Valentine's another synthwave artist. He's really good. I think I used to talk to him here and there, but I haven't in a while. I don't really keep in contact with a lot of the synthwave guys. But I listen to everything that they post. I still listen to all of that. But yeah, and then I did the moving onwards. I did the Simulation EP. And I went into that as sort of my personal soundtrack score. Not for anything in particular, but it was just kind of like, I went into it pretending that it was being made for a movie. And I had a lot of fun with that. I don't know how I got onto the topic of that. But you see, this is how things go. You kind of get a little peek into the mind of somebody monologuing as a form of therapy. A lot of cool things happening, though. You know, I'm waiting on this EP with a collaborator of mine. We've been waiting quite a while, but we're really hopeful. It's Mike Sandcastle. Search him up. He's from the UK. Killer producer, killer DJ. You know, he's very good at what he does. I'm very thankful to have worked with him. So we're just waiting on that. We sent it off to a label. It's an EP. Another EP is I sent it off to another label. It's 2 solo tracks of 1 collaboration, so I'm just kind of waiting on that. Super hyped about that. I think it would be cool. Oh, shout out to KV, by the way. She's been supporting me and Walt J's track Broke. You know, super sick. Super dope. It's not available on Meta because Mark Zuckerberg is just a goofy goober, bruh. Okay? Anyways. Yeah, shout out to all the Disco Illuminati guys. That's all I have to say. I don't even know if I'm going to post this. It kind of seemed a bit more off color, less professional than I'd like it to be, you know? I have a certain standard I set for myself, and yeah. Excuse me. All right, guys. Till next time.